Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Functional Physique podcast. This is episode 5, and joining me today is Erin Crawford, part of the IMH with Austin Stout, obviously our own coach as well. Erin, if we could kind of introduce yourself to the viewers, just a wee bit of background history on you.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep it in a nutshell. Thanks so much for having me. I first kind of got into all of this because my father was in a terrible accident that left him quadriplegic and brain injured. And so my life took a big turn. And I started really just trying to optimize health stuff for him. But then during that same time, went through my own health struggles, ended up with recurrent cervical cancer. And it was then based on what I was going through with both my dad and me that I really just completely overhauled my diet, my lifestyle, and just in general went in a completely different direction than where I thought I was headed with life. All of that to speed up, I then became heavily involved in like functional health as far as fertility, hormones, that kind of stuff, because I was really trying to recover all of that for myself at that time. And then I was just very blessed with the opportunity to work with so many other people with those types of goals. And it really just kind of exploded from there. But it was then right before I turned 30 that I was challenged to a little fitness challenge one day and failed miserably. And so I realized that even though I had really kind of saved my life and saved my health as far as nutrition and some lifestyle stuff went, I had not, however, made myself any stronger. I was actually pretty frail and weak and about to turn 30. And I thought, I can't go into my 30s like this. And so that's when I really jumped with both feet into fitness and learning everything I could as far as that goes. Ended up absolutely falling in love with the process and getting into physique sports, where I then ended up competing in figure and women's physique. And I did very well at all of that. That is what then led me to meet up with Austin. It's so funny. I still kind of tease him about how it was his YouTube videos I would watch during all of my cardio, all of my fasted cardio during prep and everything. And I have just been absolutely honored to work with the IMH crew. I love my team, to say the least. Absolutely brilliant, no drama, just want the best for people and clients. And I feel like each of us on the team has our own little niche, where we kind of shine. So I do still to this day, I'm about 20 years into all of this now. And still to this day, I specialize in fertility, autoimmunity, hormones, of course, is just a big part of a lot of that. But I also have my physique clients as well. And I have a lot of competitors. And that's kind of the almost lighthearted side of my coaching. Even though it's not lighthearted, I do take it very seriously. I always want the best for all of my clients, no matter what their goals are. But that's kind of my background in a nutshell. I feel like I could go on for an entire day on some of the details there.
Stuff, but it's also good how much you lean on each other and you are open.
Yes.
You are all well-known coaches, but you also are easy enough to turn around and ask each other questions to get each other's feedback as well. Because obviously, as you know, some people just don't want to take any sort of a feedback from each other. They'd rather just think that they know it all. But yeah, obviously on your kind of own sort of a writing topic, in terms of the autoimmune stuff and that, obviously insulin sensitivity is a big topic just now. A lot of people jumping on GLPs and that. I'm sure you've seen this yourself. But I know that yourself, when you come up against this type of thing, you've got quite a few kind of a nutritional type strategies and maybe kind of a supplementation things that you like to implement. If you want to maybe just start off speaking about that. So if a client came to you struggling with that, they're thinking about a GLP, what sort of a first steps are you doing to speak to them? Because obviously, as we know, that GLPs they can help people. Sometimes it is good to put them on there, but we obviously need to get the habits lining up so that obviously we can take them off, because we don't want it to be a long-term thing.
For sure.
But kind of over to yourself to see, where do you take that if somebody comes to you?
So when somebody comes to me with some insulin sensitivity issues, well, first off, let's just be really honest. That's the vast majority of people nowadays. I think it's something like 80% of Americans at least are dealing with insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance. And so, But I will say, I take a little bit of a different approach to this than I think a lot of coaches do, because I am very much a root cause person. The insulin sensitivity didn't just happen because of nothing. And then I also like to be very upfront with people about how insulin resistance isn't necessarily so much about food as we have been made to believe that it is. It has so much to do with stress and lifestyle. But when it is very lifestyle and even diet and nutrition based, it's because of how that lifestyle and that nutrition is stressing our bodies. So at the end of the day, insulin resistance is a stress response more than anything. When our bodies don't know that it is 2026, our bodies think we are still cavemen running from a tiger, possibly in an ice age famine, and so when we come up against a hard conversation with a colleague, or the bajillion different versions of stress in today's world, our bodies are like, well, let me, just release all of this insulin and all of this glucose into our blood to fuel us to run from the tiger. So we very often have to take a long, hard look at the stressors in our lives. And those stressors can be not eating often enough, can be eating too much. It can be eating inflammatory foods. It can be eating foods that we don't react well to, but it can also be not sleeping well enough. It can be not moving enough. It can even be moving too much. So we have to take a long, hard look at the stressors that our bodies are under and start to attack those things. And I say attack, but you want it to be a very gentle process or you're just going to further stress yourself out. We have to start taking a hard look at that stuff if we want then the nutritional and supplemental things to really be able to do their work. So when it comes to nutrition, I definitely recommend staying well fueled instead of fasting. I very, very often, especially with women, see fasting, going too long without food, leading to more insulin resistance because it is stressing their body so much. And then making sure that macros are well balanced. So many people are way, 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 way overeating in one macronutrient and then undereating and one or two of the other macronutrients. So it's about, establishing where is the ratio of your nutrition not supporting your goals and your health, and then starting to correct those imbalances in the fuel coming into our bodies. Let's see here. Protein. Protein is so important. I feel like I feel like saying this 10 years ago, everybody was like, protein is important. But now, finally, in 2026, everyone is finally understanding the importance of protein. So having a good base of protein to every meal and to just to your days in general is so incredibly supportive of glucose and balance and insulin sensitivity. Then I also, as far as root cause stuff, I also look at how well is the body functioning. I have found that so much insulin resistance is literally based in liver health, and liver health is based in gallbladder health, and women in particular are having their gallbladders removed like crazy. And but if our liver is bogged down in any way, our insulin sensitivity goes out the window. We become much more insulin resistant. So you then have to take a long, hard look of, okay, why are these organs not functioning as well as they possibly could, and start working on optimizing on that. Very often people will say, oh, but my liver enzymes are fine. Okay, but how is your cholesterol and your testosterone and your vitamin D and your magnesium levels and your vitamin A levels and your HSCRP and ferritin? All of those things combined tell us how well the liver is functioning. And so if all of those things are off, that means the liver is not functioning well, even if your liver enzymes they look good on blood work. And so we then start, okay, let's really focus on optimizing how our bodies are absorbing and utilizing our diet so that we can be as insulin sensitive as we should be.
Yep.
Let's see here. And on the GLP front, I do want to just really quickly say this. I'm not against them. Do I do my best to keep people from being reliant on those or even starting them to begin with? Absolutely, because that is not a long-term lifestyle way of feeling our best. But have I also ever suggested any client goes on them? Yes, I currently have 3 clients who are on them at my suggestion because, like, for instance, I have one client who at 32 years old, he has been incredibly insulin resistant since he was 8 years old. And so he has an incredible level of insulin resistance that he is now finally fighting against. But that's 24 years of insulin resistance that we are now working on. And it's not just something that just happened in the past year or two. So I'm not against them, just I'm for proper use and not relying on them forever. And so then when it comes to, you were asking about supplements, I have a variety of supplements that I will lean into depending on what we are seeing as that root cause of that insulin resistance. Because again, it is very rarely diet. Now, of course, if somebody comes to me and they're eating nothing but McDonald's, we're going to start there, you know?
Yeah.
We're gonna start decreasing the processed food-like products, because that's how I like to refer to them. It's that they aren't food; they're food-like products. And we're gonna start bringing in real whole foods. That alone can make a drastic change. But say you make that change and you're still seeing insulin resistance issues. Okay, so how are those organs functioning? How is the actual function of the body? How are the stress levels from whatever source it may be coming from? How sleep? People who are not sleeping cannot, they are literally incapable of truly optimizing their insulin reaction in their body, because deep sleep is the foundation to how our bodies function optimally. So we start really digging into those things. But then as far as supplements go, to supplement a proper diet and to supplement a proper lifestyle and stress management, I really start with a lot of liver health type of supplements. So TUDCA, TUDCA, or ox bile, depending on what we are seeing there as far as symptoms. If somebody has floating stool, light colored stool, that's a pretty good indicator that we need to hit the gallbladder first, because the liver is making the bile to make the gallbladder work so that we can even absorb the nutrients of our food. But if that's not even, if that whole process isn't even happening, we need to supply that bile. Let's see here. NAC, N-acetylcysteine, is a big one for liver function. It is the precursor to glutathione. So many people want to jump straight to glutathione, and I have found that that can be a bit strong for some people, and that they really need to support kind of the precursor to glutathione in the body first. Alpha lipoic acid is another one. Let's see here. Taurine. Taurine is one of my favorites and a big go-to, because it really also helps the liver metabolize out estrogen levels and that type of thing, which really decongests and brings down the stress on the liver. For some women in particular, calcium D-glucarate is also a really good one, but you do want to watch for some very particular hormonal things for that before bringing it in, because it can almost, again, be too strong in certain situations. Let's see here. And then, of course, gut health. Just our digestive health in general. We are so often told that we are what we eat, but we are what we absorb. And so if we're not absorbing our nutrients, we're not going to be able to truly maximize on what those nutrients could do for us. Let's see. I hope I've answered some of your questions there.
No, that's, it's great the way you're going on about some of this stuff. Because obviously that's, people really struggle and don't really know where to start. And it's not until you start kind of pinpointing some of these things. And it's like, to take back to the point of what you said about the gallbladder, my wife had her gallbladder taken out. The doctor never said anything about, bile or how that was going to kind of mess up her body, in terms of she should really supplement with ox bile when she has a kind of a fattier meal to help her body absorb, digest that.
Yes.
That's very rarely spoken about. And I've only seen that over the past kind of 6 months or so, that more is getting shown in social media in terms of that as well. But
yes,
but before then, there was nothing being shown about that at all.
I had spoken on this topic at a seminar 3 years ago, and people's minds were blown. And I got so many questions. Like, I talked for 45 minutes and then got an hour of questions about it. And it's really sad. It's really sad that we treat these organs that we are born with as disposable. Now, of course, there are going to be extreme situations where, yes, having a gallbladder removed is probably best. Say, for instance, gallbladder cancer or something along those lines. But if it's simply just not working optimally, we just need to start asking why. And I understand that like gallbladder attacks are extremely painful, can make you vomit for days and days and days, and who wants to live through that? But also, who wants to live through, because a lot of people don't realize all that thyroid hormone conversion is happening in the liver and gallbladder. So who wants to have a lifetime of guaranteed thyroid disease if they have their gallbladder removed? So a little bit of hard work and some uncomfortable moments can certainly change a lot about our future and how we experience living in our bodies for a very long time. Let's see. As far as, I know, of course, everyone wants to talk about berberine. Berberine, of course, can be used, and it does have its many benefits. It does have many benefits, but also at the same time, it does have some downsides to it after long-term use. So that's again where we just want to say, why am I needing this? What is the root cause of this? But can it help in a pinch? Or, even if somebody's on it for a year or two, I don't even think that that's terrible. But I have read enough GI maps to understand that it can have a pretty negative impact on the balance of our microbiome, which then takes us right back to square one of why am I not well absorbing and utilizing my diet?
Yep.
But so I didn't want to just jump on berberine as the very first thing, because I feel like that's been done a little too much, but it is an option. Let's see here.
Sorry, see, just on berberine, do you find that is there a percentage of people that you find that tolerate it? Because obviously some people do take the opposite, and it gives them digestive issues with that as well. So is there a sort of a percentage that you find that tolerate it to not tolerate it?
Yes, I feel like most people do tolerate it well, at least initially. But because I've had people come to me who have been on high dose berberine for 10 years, even at their doctor's recommendation in a way to attempt to stay off medications, and they have just crazy GI issues going on. And then we do a GI map and their microbiome is all over the place. And unfortunately, the berberine did probably play a role in that. And so now now we're getting on top of this issue, and we do need to come off the berberine. And, so I will say I feel like most tolerate it well initially, but it just shouldn't be a long-term solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that's what you would say on that.
Yeah. It's such a myth out there. I do want to that carbs are bad.
Yeah.
I had actually just made a post about this, but like last week, I'm now doing some endurance training after years of more bodybuilding stuff, and I've kind of moved to more functional training due to a back injury that I had, and which I'm loving this change up. It's keeping things interesting. I'm seeing my body respond in new, cool ways, that kind of stuff. But with endurance, do I have to eat a lot?
Yeah.
And talk about a big change from bodybuilding, where I definitely went through periods of eating a lot less. But like, for instance, right now, I am 5 days a week having like 400 grams of carbs a day. And I'm a 5'5" woman. I'm not large stature or anything. And I'm still waking up with blood glucose at like 71. My insulin is under a 3. And so, but that's the other thing. So many people aren't even testing insulin. We're just and they're just checking A1C, which literally I have diabetic clients with great A1C, because all that's telling us how steady things have been, not actually how well the body is functioning. And they're only checking blood glucose, or they think if they get a CGM, that's going to be, and it's like, but what is your insulin doing? What is and I so often, I want to bang my head against a wall. Clients are like, well, my doctor says I'm insulin resistant. My doctor says I'm insulin resistant because of my A1C or because of my blood glucose. And I'm like, but what is your insulin?
Yeah.
And that is not even something that their doctor has even attempted to check. And I feel like that is a crime.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the US, but I think it's like a major crime here in the UK that the doctors don't really go into much at all, on anything. And then some of the markers on your blood work that they would look at, like your liver enzymes, we know that they go off if you're training hard in the gym, whereas they're wanting to send you to the hospital to go and see a specialist because, your enzymes are off, and they just don't take into account of anything that you do on your lifestyle. If anything, they're telling you not to go to the gym so that it doesn't throw some of the markers off instead of just taking it into account. So it's kind of a crazy. I don't know if that's the same over in the US, but it's definitely here
100%
in the
correct.
UK.
Same here. Yeah. I mean, it's just frustrating. It's like, what year is it? How much knowledge are we all walking around with in a phone in our pocket? And yeah, it's so frustrating to say the least. I also, with women in particular, also very often see women are put on iron or told to supplement iron. And I understand why that suggestion is being made. Oh, your blood work shows low iron, so take iron. But it's like, but again, we need to talk about the actual function of the body. Iron is by definition inflammatory. It rusts, it oxidizes, it ages, and our bodies are incredibly smart, are innately intelligent. That's why my brand is innately nourished. Our bodies are innately intelligent, and our bodies know if we are taking in a bunch of iron, that's oxidizing and it's aging, so we're going to store it away. We're not going to keep it on the highway, which is the blood. We're going to put it in the garage. And what is the garage? The liver. And when the liver starts to get bogged down with a lot of iron, because you can very much look like you have low iron in blood work, but you actually have you actually have way too much iron, but it's all being stored in the liver, which is then congesting the liver, which is then causing insulin resistance, which is then causing a cascade of all these other issues. So it's like, again, let's talk about, why is our liver storing it? Why is our body not properly utilizing it? Typically, it is a lack of key nutrients, things along the lines of like magnesium, and doctors want to just check magnesium if they check it. And that's not accurate. Magnesium RBC is what needs to be checked for us to see how our cells are utilizing our magnesium. Let's see, they will say, but they never check vitamin A. Vitamin A is a precursor to testosterone and estrogen, and both testosterone and estrogen are a result of how our liver is breaking down cholesterol coming in. And so much of it just comes back to the actual function of the body and asking, why is this not functioning correctly? Yeah.
Yep.
So that's how I approach things, definitely a bit differently, but I see a lot of success by doing so.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense when you're saying all of that, but I think the problem is that not a lot of coaches kind of look into the training, look into, how all this works. I mean, a lot of people coaching wise is just, I mean, sorry to say it, but just macro based. Like, they're just, what's your protein, fats, carbs, do more steps, do more cardio. They don't think about how that is,
Exactly.
because here in the UK, I would say there's very little coaches that do this type of thing. And in terms of blood work, GI maps, they're not really spoken about, especially GI maps. I mean, I had one done myself, and the amount of people that asked me about it because they'd never heard of it. Because here in the UK, our doctor would send your toilet sample away, but always they're really looking for is your CRP. They don't look at anything else. So it's not until then that you do this yourself, and then you get everything back, and then see where everything's kind of falling in terms of the GI map. But when you explain that to people, they have no clue. It's just like straight over their head. They've not got a clue. It's the same with the blood work type of thing as well. There's certain markers that will be looked at, but the rest are just to the side.
Oh, and vitamin C. Vitamin C is another one that just good old vitamin C. I do prefer sodium ascorbate over ascorbic acid. It's much more gentle on the gut and that kind of thing. But vitamin C is absolutely a very important part in how our bodies utilize our iron. And so if we're low in vitamin C, which most people are, unfortunately, because of eating food-like products, and then again, is it that bad food, or is it how that food-like product is stressing the body? It's these little things that build up to create the big picture. Yeah.
And in terms of if we go back to like the nutrition side of things, so obviously we briefly touched on like kind of a protein, carbohydrates. Obviously we know that fats is important, and obviously people tolerate fats differently. Obviously females tend to need more fats than males. And then obviously it depends whether they're obviously enhanced or not as well. But in terms of the, like say, if we start off with protein, is there a certain target you like to go for? Because obviously the stomach acid stuff, and if they're having issues and that, do you look at that as on a case by case basis, or do you try and get everybody to a certain ratio, whether it be the 1 gram per pound, if you like?
I don't think there's any overreaching rule for everybody. I think everyone should be looked at as the individual that they are, with their individual medical history, their individual health history, their individual genetics, because there are even genetics that literally impact insulin and how our bodies make it and utilize it. So each individual should be treated as the individual that they are, for sure. And that's one of the problems with mainstream medicine, is that everybody is being treated as like a herd of cows. Like everybody's just getting the same thing, and that's the literal problem there. So yes, everything is definitely case by case for me. However, let's see, I like to aim for that 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight, or per kilogram, whichever, I like to aim for that as a starting place. If someone is clearly not digesting that well, sometimes it does need to be lowered.
Yep.
But also, if somebody is working hard in the gym or running long distance, that kind of thing, they might need significantly more than that. Or for instance, like with my fertility clients, that you're literally trying to build a new human being from your body. And if you're not supplying your body enough protein for your own cells to heal, they're not going to create the protein of a new human body. So sometimes we might need to even get up to 2.2 grams per pound, and so there is a range there for sure. And just look at it on the individual cases. Now, say I do a GI map with someone, and the very part of the microbiome that is going to help them best break down and utilize protein, if that is clearly an issue, we will back off the protein a little bit while working on the actual gut and function, the actual health and function of the gut. But then the goal is to get that back up to what I think is just kind of a bare minimum at that 1 gram, especially because a lot of new research is also showing that as women age, and I'll talk about this. I'm a perimenopausal woman myself, like as women age and our bodies, we know the term menopause, but we don't realize there's adrenopause and all different forms of ways that our bodies do stop functioning like they had been for the previous 40 or 50 years. We have to support, again, just that basic building block of the body and the function. And that's very often protein, because we are walking, talking protein. You are correct that fats are so important. Fats come in, and with good liver health, it brings us back to that. Fats are broken down into 3 hormones: estrogen, testosterone, and vitamin D. And vitamin D is not a vitamin. It is a hormone. And then but how our bodies are making that, like with the testosterone and the vitamin D in particular, that's also going to be very much based on, okay, what are our magnesium levels? What are our vitamin A levels? That type of stuff. So that, of course, brings us back to a good, clean diet. And I'm not going to go so far as like you must eat organic and non-GMO and all of that. Can that be helpful for some inflammatory issues and concerns? Of course, but a well-balanced, real food-based diet in particular. Am I saying that I have not had anything that's not real food recently? No. I very much enjoyed my cinnamon scone yesterday, that I dipped in my latte, but at the same time, that's not like the general basis to my diet.
Yeah, it's just a snapshot of how much food that you would eat in a week. I think this is where the people going about the 80-20 rule. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily agree on that 80-20, because I think it should be maybe a bit less, but there's always got to be that sort of a balance where you have some kind of a normalish type food. And what I mean by normalish, normal to normal people. So obviously my wife and daughter would look at me, my food is normal to them because they see it all the time, but what they eat is slightly different from me. Obviously they can try and mimic meals in mine, but they'll have kind of what normal people would kind of look at. But again, I'm a bit different again, because obviously I've got an autoimmune disease, because I've got IBD as well. So again, I have to think about these factors as well in terms of stuff that I eat as well, that obviously other people don't really eat. In terms of the fats though, but is there certain fats that you kind of like to lean on more?
Yes, I do prefer animal fats, actual cholesterol over plant fats, and just because I do feel through my research and my experience that is the more natural source of fats for the human body. But of course, I do also and have worked with I have and do work with vegans who aren't willing. to go that route. And so that's when I will just more steer them towards the less inflammatory, less rancid fats. So things more along the lines of coconut oil, really good high quality. This is important with olive oil because unfortunately there is a book out there called, gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the book now, but it's all about how the olive oil industry has been very much adulterized
Yeah.
and isn't quite what we think it is. So high quality coconut oil, high quality olive oil, avocado oil, macadamia oil, if we are going to do like a cedar nut oil, is a really good one. And then good high quality fish oils. But of course, we're not adding that to our food so much as
Yeah.
supplementing it. Those are definitely more of the fats that I lean towards. I don't want to come across as one of those crazy jumping on a fad, people about seed oils, that kind of stuff. But there is a lot of evidence that we as a species were never intended to get our fats from sources that had to be highly gone through mechanical processes to then even become something that we can consume. So the less processing something takes, the more natural I think it is for us and how our bodies can utilize it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, see, when it comes down to the kind of a seed oil topic and stuff, I think, the biggest concern is when somebody's consuming a lot of it. I don't think it's so much maybe a concern if it's if it's a smaller amount. I think the problem is that people consume far too much and we're having to lower it. Again, if you've got autoimmune in that, any type of autoimmune like IBD like myself or that, yeah, you're probably going to have to pay particular attention to that type of thing. But for the normal person that's maybe not, it's about lowering these type of foods out the diet.
Yeah, I I am a big fan personally. I'll even call it a weakness of some peanut butter and talk about you can get a lot of bang for your buck calorie wise with a very small amount, especially when you start to have higher calories, kind of like what I am currently consuming. There's only so much room
Yeah, yeah,
in there for food. And things along the lines of like peanut butter is an excellent way of getting a lot of calories in a small amount, or even like things like a good high quality mayonnaise is
yep.
also going to be a great way of going about it. But again, that's going to be more avocado oil based instead of canola oil based. But I completely agree with you about how so much of the concerns of that is really about the actual amount that is being consumed. So many people don't realize when they are eating more food like products than real whole foods that they might be consuming 100 grams a day of seed oils
Yep.
easily without realizing it, when they really need to be consuming 60 grams of high quality oils. And
Yep.
so not only are they way overdoing it, they're way overdoing it in something that is more inflammatory. Going back to like the nut butters, I'm personally not a fan of almond products. I having worked with so many autoimmune, very gut based type of issues, because a lot of fertility issues are very much based in gut health. I have found in particular, especially with women, that women do tend to be a little bit more sensitive to foods that are high in anti-nutrients, and almonds, spinach, those types of things that we are often told are healthy at the individual level aren't at, I'm not going to say aren't healthy, but aren't well utilized by the body, can be a bit more inflammatory, might stop. I see them, let me put it this way, I see them be a major cause of constipation issues. So I personally don't recommend very often like almond butter or almond flour. Now, cashew butter, peanut butter, macadamia butter, even, or just those types of nuts in general, it doesn't even have to be in the butter form, are definitely ones that I see better tolerated. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, because from what I've seen, I see people tend to sometimes digest almond butter better than peanut butter. Kind of from where I've stood. However, again, I would say personally for me, peanut butter would definitely be better for me. And as you mentioned there about the likes of spinach, spinach is just, I look at spinach and it just annoys my stomach, before I've even touched it.
It's so,
Um,
yeah.
so
And with your
again, it
history of
is.
IBD, that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the likes of the cashew butter that you mentioned, that's like a dream. That's like a back pocket of mine there, because not a lot of people seem to talk about cashew butter. It's always peanut butter or almond butter, but that's something that I've always got in the kind of a back burner. If MD's having any issues, that's where I tend to kind of send them to the next.
Yes. And I have found one recently that my son is loving. My son is 3. And of course, as the daughter, or sorry, as the son of a bodybuilder,
Yeah.
has had his fair share of rice cakes and
Yeah.
nut butter.
Yeah.
Just because he sees me eating and he's like, I want to try it. But I found one recently that is cashew butter mixed with coconut oil.
Right.
My gosh, it is so good, tasty wise, and my digestion loves it. It's
Right.
so less inflammatory, and I can literally just tell with how my body responds to it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
my son,
I don't think I've ever seen that over here, but I've seen the almond with coconut butter,
yes,
but I've never seen the cashew one here. So
maybe
that's
you can search
interesting.
it or see if it's something you can order because
Yeah.
I think especially with the history of IBD, you would appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I must have a look at that. And just to take it back as well, obviously you'd mentioned about like the carbohydrates. So
Yes.
I'm a big proponent of obviously carbohydrates because I do think it's something that's underutilized by a lot because obviously you have the crowd where you can't eat anything after 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night, or you have some kind of a smaller females that just think that they shouldn't have any carbohydrates. You've got some males like that as well because obviously they've got that kind of a maybe beer type belly and that they've been told that they can't have any carbohydrates, whereas that's obviously totally wrong. In terms of kind of a carbohydrates, is there things that you look at, you know, what your kind of a preference is in terms of, for an example, some people will mostly have white rice. So we know white rice digests probably the best, but it's probably not going to be the best to consume all the time. Obviously, depending if you're dealing with gut issues or that. However, some people can't digest brown rice, same as some people can deal with white potato, sweet potato, but some can't have any. So is there certain things that you kind of a look at in terms of carbohydrates for preference?
Well, definitely, of course, just how they're digesting things. Again, going back to especially women, I don't see brown rice be handled well at all, but so many people are consuming it because they've been told it's heart healthy. And it's like, actually, that's rice that's still in the hole. And we as a species don't have the extra organs that other mammals have in order to break down that type of fiber and then to even get the nutrients out of it, which I think is one of the problems with sweet potatoes also because it has a very particular type of, everybody's been eating a sweet potato at some point and see the stringiness, almost
Yeah,
like celery, and that is a form of fiber that like we don't have the multiple stomachs or the large cecum organ that gorillas or cows or horses have in order to break down all that fiber. And we also don't regurgitate our food back up to rechew it 200 times before we then process it through these other organs that we don't have. So as far as carbs, white rice, I do, if we are going to go with grains, I do tend to see white rice be utilized better. However, some people do have a really big insulin response to it. And if we start to see that, maybe we need to take that out and work a little bit more on gut health. However, I will say this, there are a couple of little tricks on getting the body to better utilize these carbs. So cooking rice and potatoes and then letting them cool for 6 to 24 hours before then consuming. That really builds up some prebiotics in them that are very beneficial in helping our digestion better handle them. So instead of eating them fresh, let's see here. I'm a really big fan of fruit. I think fruit is the most natural source of carbs for humans. We would not have back in the day, back in those caveman days I was talking about, been walking along and been like, oh, this piece of grass has a rice kernel in it. I'm going to eat that as my carb source. We wouldn't have done that. But if we had come across an apple tree, we were going to stop and we're going to eat some apples or
yeah,
oranges or, if you find some grapes or blueberries or, things like that. And there are so many anti-inflammatory properties found in so many fruits, I think for that very reason. Let's see. I'm also a big fan of maple syrup and honey, Manuka honey in particular for anybody with any type of gut issues because it is more medical grade honey. I help take care of my dad who's quadriplegic, and I've even literally utilized Manuka honey on say like a bed sore to heal it up.
yeah,
It's fascinating how healing it can be for the human body. And again, as calories start to get higher, if you need them to get higher, it's hard to have the room for carbs in particular. Carbs tend to take up the most room. And so finding things along the lines of like honey and maple syrup can be really helpful. About the timing thing that you brought up and about not eating later, that is, I will say, I do think it is beneficial for a lot of people to give their digestive system a break while they're resting so that their body can, what's the best way to put that? so that their bodies can really focus on repair and restoration of other systems instead of just digesting all night. However, I have also found, in particular, in some insulin resistant people or insulin resistant situations. So, women go through a lot of insulin changes in pregnancy, for instance. And I have found that some people do need a protein and fiber snack right before bed, like literally eating, and I don't know, say a scrambled egg and having some green beans
Yeah.
before they get in bed, like literally minutes before they're trying to fall asleep, in order to stabilize how their body is regulating insulin through the night. If they're waking up every night at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., that kind of thing, is very often a cortisol issue driven by insulin. And something going on with their insulin at that time. And so that's when a bedtime snack can be helpful instead of bogging down digestion. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that I get that with the timing thing. I just tend to find that some people think, just say for instance, they should eat at 6 p.m., but they're not going to bed to just say 10 p.m., 9, 10 p.m. So there's that large gap, and that's what I was meaning by the time wise.
Mhm.
However, I do find, if we go back to the topic of what you were saying about sleep, a lot of people with just even a small amount of carbs before bed, I tend to find that they sleep better. So that's why I like a small amount. But again,
I'm a
sometimes
big
see
fan
like
of
from
chamomile hot tea and honey before bed
right,
because it's very calming, but you are getting that small amount of easily digested carbs.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing that I look at, especially I'll use myself as an example with that, is I tend to train first thing in the morning. So like I get up, and obviously having IBD and that, it's not really particularly great to have a big meal before I go and train. So I actually tend to do the reverse, and I have a bigger carb heavier meal before bed. Gives me a good sleep. It means when I get up in the morning, I can get some fast acting carbs in me. Then I'm straight to the gym, and I don't need to worry about the digestion. So that's where I look at that for myself personally,
Yeah,
in
and
terms
that
of the
makes
carbs.
perfect sense to me. That makes perfect sense to me. And anybody who trains very early or very quickly after waking up, I think can definitely benefit from having more carbs before bed as compared to if somebody is training at 8 p.m.
Yeah,
But
yep,
when people do train later in the day, I do still have them have a post workout meal for the most part. Of course, there's always the individual cases, but and then that be because I usually keep a lot of fats away from our workouts. But in that case, I think I have found that fats in particular from after a late workout can be very calming to the system, very calming to the digestion, and not make someone feel depleted or waking up with crazy blood glucose spikes and whatnot throughout the night, or in a hypoglycemic
yep,
episode first thing in the morning. Yeah. So there's a lot to just take into consideration of like, what is your schedule like? That brings us back to the lifestyle considerations that have to go into all of this.
yeah,
I was always a 5 a.m. well 4 a.m. workout person because when I was doing in-person training, I started training my clients at 5 a.m. and then I would train them for 12 hours,
yeah,
and so that was my only time to get in my workout. So I was a big fan of having a big meal, probably not a big meal, but some easily digested, plenty of easily digested carbs before bed, about an hour, anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes before bed when I was waking up at 3 a.m. in the gym at 4 a.m., starting to train clients and on my feet for 12 hours past that. But now I train myself in the middle of the day at like noon, and so I don't have a lot of carbs right before bed. Do I still have some? Yes. Again, the chamomile tea and some honey, so calming.
yeah,
I'm not waking up with blood glucose spikes through the night, but I now get to have two large, heavy on protein, heavy on carb meals before my
before the
workout. And so
training.
I don't have to do that at nighttime. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. It's the context of everything, as you say. This is why when clients come to us, we need to get the background of everything. It's not that we're particularly trying to be nosy, but we're trying to get to the bottom of how to schedule things, because at the end of the day, it's not a cookie cutter plan. It needs to be based on them, and how they're feeling, and what their lifestyle is like, so that we can actually implement some strategies to actually help them and pull them out the hole that most of them are actually in, because that's why they're coming to us in the first place.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And just to kind of a thing me on there on the fruits as well. I tend to find that most people, even with gut issues, tend to tolerate fruits better than veg. Although myself, I'm a kind of a hit and a miss with any of it, to be honest with you. But in terms of fruits, is there certain fruits that you like to put more people to?
Berries are like the perfect form of fiber for the human body. So I lean on berries a lot. Apples, but it comes down to the person and their gut health on whether or not I'm going to recommend apple with the skin or not. Kiwi, I'm also a big fan of kiwi, pomegranate. Let's see. I will say bananas and grapes tend to be a little bit more questionable just because some people have extreme insulin or blood glucose response to those because they are very, very high glycemic. So it really just comes down to the person on whether I'm like, I think you should avoid this or, strategically place it in your day. Let's see here. Gosh, melon, watermelon, cantaloupe. I find those things tend to be very well digested. Because they're a lot of water.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's see. Yeah, I feel like that's probably a lot of my go-tos. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I think the thing that I look at with fruits, I don't know if you do the same, but it's more the portion sizes for a lot of people, because I think that's the biggest thing. Because that's what I certainly do when I'm trying to push and pull certain fruits into my diet. Because I tend to, I'll put something in and it'll be fine, but then it'll turn on me, so I need to pull it back out. So it's always amounts, and I just work my way up in amounts and then pull back. So I'm constantly chopping and changing all the time with that, just so that I can try and kind of force my body, if you like. But again,
Very,
that's just part of living with IBD.
and
It
that's
is
a
what
very
it is.
smart way of going about it. Yeah, I agree with that completely. Yeah.
In terms of veg, I take it obviously you're just similar with veg as well, that you just try and push that as much as you can,
Yeah,
to an extent.
I'm a big fan of like green beans for their type of fiber. Carrots are a big one, and carrots are also really good for estrogen metabolism. Carrot salad, I actually recommend a lot, which is where you shred a carrot and add a little bit of apple cider vinegar, so that's good for the gut. Add a little bit of manuka honey, again, very anti-inflammatory and healing, and a little bit of sea salt. So then you're getting some minerals in there as well. It tastes good, and it's so good for people. So and it's really good for, in particular, hormone support. Let's see here. Zucchini is a good one for, not having a lot of calories if
Yep.
someone is dieting down. I personally love potatoes, but I know that not everyone can handle them the same. I am careful with sweet potato recommendations just because they are high estrogen on top of having a type of fiber that not everybody can handle so well. Personal experience here, maybe TMI, but like my son, when I was first introducing foods to him and I tried sweet potatoes with him because it was one of the highly recommended things, that poor baby got so constipated for like a week.
Yeah.
And, and so I had to do all the things to get him moving again. And so we held off on sweet potatoes with him again for a long time. Just in general, more gourd type of. So I really like butternut squash, spaghetti squash. Those tend to be. I find squash is better tolerated for digestion, and it's a good way of getting some calories and carbs in too. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I do a lot of baked apples, so I do a lot of like apple stuff where I'm almost treating it as more of a vegetable. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, I like the taste of apples, but I can't really have them. But as what I was doing is, when I was trying to push things, I was getting the pectin tablets. I was supplementing
yes,
it to try and
yes,
put it in me to try and raise my tolerance for these type of things. So I'd started off trying to look at that type of way to try and kind of again just force my body. Again, it's just kind of what I've had to do.
yeah.
And I tend to find that a lot of people with IBD definitely struggle with the type of things. I just think that a lot of the time you can get them to tolerate the fruit better than the veg.
Same.
But again, sometimes we just need to look at the kind of a fibre or pectin or what we can put in to supplement to then start putting the real food in and then start bringing it up.
Yes, 100%. I personally can't do like broccoli and cauliflower. I look 6 months pregnant for a good 48 hours as soon as I eat them. And it sucks. It sucks as soon as I realized that these were trigger foods for me because these were things that I had previously enjoyed, but wasn't realizing that they were the thing that was leading to But what really helped me realize that was when I was in prep at one point. So I was super lean. I was down to like 10% body fat, and I brought some broccoli and cauliflower in. And when you're that lean, you very
Yeah.
quickly see exactly how things impact you.
Yep.
And I still have the video. I sent a video to my coach that time. Like, I look pregnant. And I
Yeah.
literally did. I looked like I could give birth in the next couple of weeks, you know? And so, yeah, it really just all comes down to that individual and their history and genetics and so much of that. Yeah.
I always find it crazy that the body will respond pretty quick, like as you said there. You know, you'll blow up pretty quick, but there's always that delay in it actually coming back. It always seems to take a lot longer to come back to normal. So as you said there, it took what 48 hours for your body to start coming back down, whereas you're probably talking within a couple of hours it actually bloated up. That always interests me with the body, in terms of
It,
that.
it is. It's fascinating. And then also, like, for some people, you know, they might be so heavy they don't even
Yeah,
realize just how bloated they are from
yeah.
these foods. And so it is a process of discovery. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the problems is as well is that people have convinced themselves that it's normal because they've had these things for so long, and it's not until they start maybe having a coach and you start to dive into things, you start to fix things, and then all of a sudden it's like I actually feel better, I feel different now, and that's when the kind of the light bulb moment hits that I've not been right for years, but now I'm starting to get better.
Yeah.
And
Like,
I think that
not
I think that's the best part of coaching. When you start to get the light bulb moments in people.
that outside perspective is invaluable. It
Yeah,
really is.
definitely.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Erna, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I really, really appreciate you coming on. That was
This has
a
been a
great
great
kind of
talk. Thank
yeah,
you so much.
absolutely brilliant. I'm sure the viewers will have learnt loads from that. But on that topic as well, if anybody wants to reach out to ask you anything, do you want to put out a kind of a plug there where people can get hold of you?
Yes. Best ways are probably email or Instagram. Instagram, I am innately underscore nourish. So INNATELY _nourished. Or you can email me at Erin, ERIN, at innatelynourish.com.
Absolutely brilliant, Erin. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on. That was a great episode. Thank you.
This has been great. Thank you so much.